If you can get back to having your animals fed the natural way, it's a better health source for yourself.
Mandy Sosebee works at Raised in a Barn Farm in Chocowinity, North Carolina, one of many farms responding to a growing concern about what's going into the food supply. Experts say a particular concern is that bacteria are becoming resistant to antibiotics.
What surprises people is that when you tell them we're in the post-antibiotic era, antibiotics are just becoming less and less useful faster than we think.
A major contributor to the resistance is the unregulated use of antibiotics in livestock. The FDA reports that 79 to 84% of antibiotics in the U.S. are given to animals rather than humans.
Antibiotics came into play when you're force-feeding animals with high-intensity gluten-containing feeds that are commercially grown with all kinds of additives in them, and they cause animals to get sick.
Mary Betty Kearney and her family operate the Nooherooka farm in Snow Hill, North Carolina, specializing in chemical-free livestock. She says factory farm conditions also cause livestock to get sick.
If you look at a common feedlot, they're dusty. They cause respiratory problems for cows particularly. So they just end up being sick, and it's a common thing.
Factory farms use antibiotics to cure illnesses and prevent disease in livestock. Antibiotics are also used to increase animal growth and produce more meat at lower costs. They're added to the animal's feed and directly injected into the animals.
There's a lot of reasons why these feedlot operators suggest that it's important to add the antibiotics.
Dr. Jeffrey Smith is a professor of microbiology in the Brody School of Medicine at East Carolina University.
It includes the proximity of the animals to each other, which leads to, if there is an infectious disease, communicable disease, it can cut down on that. And there's this unknown factor that, using antibiotics in feed seems to promote their growth.
This is not just an issue for meat consumers. Workers who handle the animals and the communities surrounding factory farms may be in danger of coming into contact with antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
It's really the bacteria that are produced in these animals that get out either in their waste or through animal handlers and those folks that, do the slaughtering even, that, once those bacteria start to interact with bacteria in our body, that's when you get the transfer of the resistance occurring.
Some scholars have concluded that antibiotic overuse in animals is problematic, but there's no way to determine the breadth of the problem.
I think one of the keys might be to get new research on other types of way that we can promote the growth of the animals.
One goal of the FDA is to track just which antibiotics are becoming resistant.
So they may see an increase in resistance in one antibiotic, so they make a policy then to stop using that antibiotic and switch to a different one.
An FDA plan announced recently is to phase out antibiotics medically important to humans from also being used in animals.
Once you stop giving an antibiotic, it takes a while, but eventually the resistance will go down. It never goes away completely and can come back really fast then. But by and large, I think the frequency will go down if you stop using one and start another one.
Other countries have gone as far as to outlaw some antibiotics.
In Europe, they've banned the use of antibiotics in feed for a lot of uses, or a lot of the countries, and we should really do the same thing here, and it would really help the problem.
Experts say more people are becoming antibiotic resistant than ever, but their overuse in livestock isn't the only concern.
Now, grain is being inserted with chemicals and hormones, and it also has pesticides and herbicides that are already injected into the grains, and that's going through the meat, and it's something that you ingest.
Other farmers agree.
And antibiotics cause us to gain weight. So that helps to add the weight to the animal. So we just don't do any of that.
Mass-marketed producers, they inject their cattle with hormones to make the cow lactate. So even if they haven't had a calf, they are still lactating, which gives them a higher quantity of milk. Even after pasteurization, the hormone is still within the milk, and that is something that you ingest.
Some farmers say cancer could be attributed to herbicides.
We have such a high cancer rate. Other countries do not use that, and you don't see their cancer rates as high.
Even vitamins can be problematic when used inappropriately.
Well, one thing that's put in commercial feed right before a cow goes to slaughter, a lot of times they really pump the feed up with vitamin E, and that really gives your steaks a bright red color. You think of vitamins as good, but of course, anything too much of it creates a problem.
Some farmers say antibiotic, hormone, and chemical-free livestock is better for the consumer.
When you're giving your animals grain, it is giving them a higher fat content, which isn't always healthy for you. Animals were put on the earth to graze, not to be fed a grain.
We can track everything that actually goes into our animals. There's no question about where the corn came from, what's applied to it, what chemicals are on it. We have control over everything.
But meat that is free of chemicals costs more, which can be a deterrent for many considering the switch.
So don't feel like that you've slighted your family if you're serving less, if you're serving a better quality products.
That's because Kearney says natural beef is more filling.
You don't have to eat a huge plate of natural meats and to feel fulfilled.
The CDC reports that 22% of antibiotic-resistant illnesses can be directly attributed to food consumption, but Smith says that's only a small contributor to the problem.
Antibiotics in feed is not the only thing that's driving this by any stretch of the imagination.
Consumers are becoming more health conscious and are starting to support organic farmers.
People are demanding a better product, so we are just trying to meet that demand.
We've had a huge response. We have people that come all the way from Ocracoke just to get our meat, so the response has been extremely well.
Antibiotics have solved a lot of public health problems historically, but now many argue their usefulness is diminishing. That's why at least some farmers say the old-fashioned way of raising livestock is the best way.
It means a healthier living for all of us. It means that we as a community are helping one another. It's just getting back to a way of life that has been forgotten.
I'm Persida Montanez reporting.